Welcome to San Antonio, Mr. Hausman, home of the Alamo.
Yeah, I am so excited to be here. I am on a mission retracing all of Pee Wee's steps in his big adventure, and I'm finally at the Alamo. How do I get to the basement?
I think that was a fictional movie. There is no basement.
Oh, does that mean I don't get to meet Morgan Fairchild?
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Glenn Hausman. We're here at the No Vacancy podcast, and I'm excited this week. This week's show is taking place to you all from San Antonio, Texas. That's right. I'm at the AAHOA convention here, and boy, is this a lot of fun. I got myself a great little studio over here out in the main lobby, and we've had so much fun at this event. I can't begin to tell you what an exciting experience it is, but we are about to take it up another level. Straight from Germany, got my special guest, Mr. Bruce Ford, SVP of Lodging Econometrics. All right, not straight from Germany, but that's the last time we spoke. How are you, Bruce?
Glenn, I'm super this morning. Good to see you. I have to tell you, it was an interesting experience last night. I was in a Seder vortex last night, talking about everybody's different traditions. It being the week of Passover, very different for me. Obviously, not something I would have expected, but compelling conversation nonetheless.
Well, this has been a tough week for everybody. There's a lot going on, and I'll tell you what, though, we are amping things up. It's the first time. If you guys are listening to this on audio, that's great, but be sure to check the No Vacancy Glenn Hausman channel on YouTube and the AAHOA channel on Facebook, and you'll get to see us on video here. You may even be watching it right now. Boy, is this cool. We're in this big glass-enclosed studio here at the AAHOA conference. I feel this is pretty sophisticated stuff, Bruce.
Now, we needed to be careful. We were going to do an after-hours edition last night, but we were worried about people getting too close to the glass. We had to go with the early morning schedule.
That's true. We don't have enough cleaning fluid to make sure that the glass is clean before this morning.
But with that being said, Glenn, this is a really unique opportunity, and thank you again for the invitation. Obviously, doing some work here at AAHOA. I had a panel yesterday about the future of franchising.
Right.
And we've also talked to quite a few suppliers and owners, really just trying to get the sentiment of the industry now 4 or 5 months post-presidential election. So it's obviously there's change in the air.
Yeah. Well, there's always change in the air. I feel like the last year has been everybody waiting for the other foot to drop, but hoping it never actually happens.
Correct, and I think somebody picked up the shoe before it actually hit the floor, so that was good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, which is really good. I mean, I will tell you, I'm seeing somewhere between regular optimism and totally unbridled optimism amongst a lot of people here.
Yeah, there's really two things that people are kind of just maybe mildly concerned about. Obviously, I think that some people think that the lending environment still has not yet come to their terms, if you will. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that people who are getting money today feel like it's tougher to get than it might have been a year ago, or it's not as financially in their favor as it was maybe a year ago. I guess would be another way to say it. But I've said before on this very podcast, Glenn, that I think that a couple of upticks in the Fed funds rate is not necessarily a bad thing.
No, as a matter of fact, one of the quotes I think you've said that you've heard around is if you can't handle a little uptick on interest, then you really shouldn't be in this business to begin with.
Fair enough. Because the uptick actually tends to get transactions started because it leads owners to maybe believe that some of their value has peaked. Okay, there's always a number of components to putting a value on a hotel. Mm-hmm. Its age, its PIP requirements, its extension capabilities with the franchise companies, and its current operating performance. So when you're evaluating all of that, if your operating performance is still going up, but yet the cost to purchase your hotel because of the price of the debt does change the value of the asset.
That was pretty smart sounding stuff right there. And,
hey,
It's early in the morning. I'm still
I've taken a couple
it.
real estate courses in my day,
Right.
and I'm here to tell you that does change the path.
I think this is the earliest we've ever done a recording together. Usually it's in late afternoon, early evening. It's totally different vibes.
Yes.
I feel like we're doing a morning radio show right here, right now.
Well, that's pretty cool. There's obviously people flooding in. The general sessions have begun this morning. The trade show is going to open in a little while. So we've definitely creating the buzz.
That's for sure.
You forgot the red on-air sign, though, Glenn.
I know.
You don't have that hanging out there?
Next year we're going to get a red on-air sign. We're going to upgrade all of this kind of stuff.
You could have put one of your crazy socks out there, and we could have just hung that over the door.
That would that would have been a really good idea. I like that. I like that. Really interesting. But we're here at AAHOA. We're having a great time. I can't believe that there's more than 6,000 people at this event, and wow, it's like everybody's
It's
here.
very different from a lot of other events that you get in hospitality because it's not only an association, but it's a culture.
That's right.
And the culture that they bring to this kind of event is unique to those hotel owners, and it definitely shines through while you're here. And it's their time to celebrate. It's their annual event. And, of course, they make a lot of big decisions as what the association will do for the next year. And I was honored to be invited.
Yeah, me too. It's really a fun thing to be part of. And you're right. It's part work, part productivity, part family reunion in a lot of way. And also, it is, I think, the social event of the community.
Yep.
You should have seen yesterday. I'm sorry, everybody, but I'm a little not sure of the Bollywood stars' names. There's actually a poster on the other side with some of the names.
I would likely fail that test as
well.
But
I saw yesterday a couple of people that I suppose are really big celebrities because they were flanked by a lot of cops, and they weren't in handcuffs being dragged out. So I have to assume that they were somebody important over there.
Yeah, that's more than likely to be the case. And I saw that they had different entertainment every night. So I mean, that's obviously again a big part of the cultural draw, which is AAHOA.
Yeah, and a lot of great speakers. They have Scott Kelly, the astronaut, coming tomorrow, which I guess is today is the day that we're posting this particular show to the internet feed.
Yes.
But listen, great time, great fun. But I want to talk a little bit about San Antonio for a minute, and then maybe a little bit about Texas in all. San Antonio, I'm not necessarily sure I would say, hey, family, let's go there and hang out on a vacation in San Antonio. But
yeah,
I think this is a pretty awesome conference convention type of town.
Well, it's got, I would hand count maybe 15 hotels within a 3 to 4 block walk of the convention center, which is a lot of guest rooms, okay? And those are pretty big hotels. And so that is always important to the success of a convention center, and obviously being able to do 6,000 person conventions right here. I don't think we have another convention in the hotel business that has that kind of attendance that's not a vendor fair,
right,
if you will.
Yeah,
So,
because I was going to say, what about like high tech? But you're absolutely right.
From a conference perspective, this being a conference with an exhibition, I don't think that there's one that's quite this big. I think the second thing is they've been here to San Antonio before and enjoyed it, so they came back.
Right.
Thought that the value was pretty good. It's not the easiest place to get to. I mean, San Antonio's kind of like city number 27, if you will.
Right.
It's not the easiest place to get to, but I think the price-value relationship's pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. And I would add, I just love the city and downtown because you have that whole Riverwalk area, which, I'm a sucker. People make fun of me because I like the Disney kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm looking at you over there. And it reminds me of that kind of, fun, energetic kind of way. I feel almost like that Riverwalk area is kind of like Epcot on the water or something like that.
Sure, yeah, it was well developed and well master planned many, many, many years ago.
Yeah.
It's been structured like this for more than 100 years. Obviously, it continues to change over time as they build new hotels and they build new retail, and then some of it changes. Like the Grand Hyatt, I think, was 4.5 years ago that hotel opened.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was open the last time that I was even here.
That's correct. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was still very much under construction.
That's good to know because I was scratching my head going, where did this thing come from?
And there's actually 2 Hyatts here in the Riverwalk area.
Yeah, there's a Hyatt Regency nearby.
There's 2 Marriotts here. So there's all the brands are wholly represented.
Wholly represented.
Yeah.
I saw Marriott Street that had a regular Marriott, a Fairfield, a Spring Hill, and a Residence Inn. I mean, wow.
Yeah, well, the Urban Center Select Service Development is certainly one of the trends out there that we talked a lot about in my panel yesterday. We were kind of isolating that and saying not only urban select service with brands like Hampton and Holiday Inn Express, but also urban extended stay, and do Homewood Suites and Residence Inns and Candlewoods and Staybridges. And I always look at that block in New York on 40th and 9th that has that wraparound. That was one of the first real clusters of select service I ever recall seeing.
Is that like 6
that
hotels?
Functioned. Yes. So they have a Four Points, a Fairfield, a Hampton, a Holiday Inn Express, a Candlewood, a Staybridge, and an Independent, I think.
Wow.
I think all in that cluster.
I'm just going to say you're absolutely correct because I can't verify.
The wrap around the corner, allowed them to catty corner all of the public space in the back in kind of an atrium setup. There's only one negative about that property.
The rates you have to pay? Elevators.
Probably stayed there 2 or 3 times. That's right. Because when you have a 27-story skinny building
with one elevator
and 6 rooms per floor,
right?
You got to add time to the commute in the morning to get downstairs.
Yeah, it's really difficult that commute downstairs because it could really take you 10 to 15 minutes.
And it can totally throw you off if you're trying to time yourself to your arrival of your meeting or your convention or your transportation or wherever else you're going.
And that's an important strategy. It's kind of like in Las Vegas, I have to leave my room a half an hour before my meeting appointment to make sure I get to the convention center. At least. That's
going up to 35 minutes this year because, of course, the next time we go to Las Vegas, the convention center that we used to sit in for that show
they're in the new space
not the one they're using this year, so it will be even further.
Oh, my God. And there's nothing great like walking on those fall cobblestones for your feet.
Man, if I can freaking rent a Segway, I'd do it. Maybe I'll get one of those Delta golf carts. I'll bring it over from the airport.
That's what I was just thinking. I just want to get one of those carts with the guy going,
Get out of the way. Important people coming through. Okay. Of course, we could just go with the teleport button, too, which we love. Right?
Yeah, I'm working on the teleport button. I've been watching a lot of Family Guy. I'd like to do a little time machine or something like that.
Teleport, where are my freaking jetpacks? I need those. Well, but with that being said, Glenn, we are here in Texas, and we wanted to talk some about Texas today, both on the pipeline side, the general sentiment, and additionally some sales transaction stuff.
Well, I see, Texas is interesting to me because there's so many big markets within Texas that it's hard to really categorize the whole state in one way. You really have to get down to market-by-market basis.
Yeah, so, we're here in San Antonio, and certainly the biggest markets being San Antonio, Houston, Austin, Dallas, obviously are the ones that developers think of first. Texas was one of the first places I ever heard the line of, we're not overbuilt in the hotel industry, we're under-demolished.
Right.
And
that's up there with put heads in beds.
Yeah. Because in the highway system in Texas, much of the way that they built it, that the hotels populated on the highways in Texas, because you can really drive for quite a long way in this state and not reach the other end. So so highway travel and road travel commonly in Texas, as people drove, they'd stay on the highway motels.
Of course.
It's a very common thing to do. So those motels, as they became 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, the location wasn't bad because the highway was still there. It's the product was bad.
Right.
So they needed to knock down, redevelop. Some of those remained hotels. Some of those became other things. But there was that kind of renaissance through the years of doing that. And then, of course, with the change in the hospitality business in terms of we really don't build a lot of big full-service suburban conference center hotels of scale anymore.
Right.
There are a number of those that are built in Dallas because they're built around office parks. And when you build an office park in Dallas, you build a couple million square feet.
Right.
So you can't live with a Hampton Inn and a Holiday Inn Express that say that's going to service that. Yeah. You need a big Westin.
Right. Now, when we talk about Dallas, we're not really just talking about Dallas. We're talking about the greater Dallas metropolitan area, like places like Plano and that as well, right?
Right. There's a separation in the way that the hospitality industry cuts the market. There is a separation between Dallas and Fort Worth.
Right.
Okay, but Grapevine and Plano are in part of the Dallas Metroplex,
Yeah.
But so there's 149 projects in Dallas, 140 projects in Dallas, which is more than people would realize, okay? And it's actually had a pretty big run-up in the past 12 months of increase of about 35%.
What's driving that business? Is the business being driven by new developments, such as the office parks you're saying, or is it one of those things where developers need to develop, so gosh darn it, they're going to develop?
In 2008, when I came down here right after the banking collapse, Dallas was one of those places where I was taken aback by the vacancy in the office parks.
Right.
Okay. And I think there was a big shift away from the policies that led to that. And as a result, there's a lot more companies that want to come here now. So as a result of that, we're even seeing those offices rented or become not vacant anymore, and we're seeing new developments too in new areas of town. Plus, there's a lot of state highway construction going on in Texas that allows for these new developments. And Jerry built a new stadium, Jerry World, okay, and the convention center was renovated, and so there was a lot of renaissance in Dallas, which has led to new hotels. The biggest thing you say about why is the city seeing new hotels, Glenn, is usually two big reasons. Number one, brand presence and pressure. Okay, the brands want to be there. They're looking to identify developers that want to do their brands.
Right.
The new brands that get announced, Dallas is obviously in the top 10 list of any place you want to go because it's got such a global, quote, presence in the city. There's a lot of hotel companies here. There's a lot of suppliers here. Dallas is kind of like, the Southern Star, if you will.
Right.
So the other thing is that RevPAR growth. Dallas has been doing very well on RevPAR growth for the past 6 or 7 years. And when RevPAR continues to grow, developers pay attention, just like owners pay attention. So we had some transactions that have occurred in Dallas. We had a new Home 2 Suites that recently sold, that was recently built in Round Rock. Glenn, and it sold for $185,000 a guest room.
Holy cazoli.
Okay.
Put that into context, please, for folks that don't understand the nuances of the business like you do.
So you probably, a Home 2 Suites in a suburban area on a highway, you can probably build it for around 100 or under 100.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big premium. And Round Rock being kind of what they call a high-density area. It's not an urban center, but it's a high-density area, if you will, a lot of population. And so that development, that developer who did that certainly got, we'll call it a success fee,
right?
for being able to execute on that plan and
right.
build it, okay? And versus, a 20-year-old Embassy Suites that needs a big PIP that recently sold in about $110,000 a room in suburban Dallas.
Wow,
so,
what a big difference. An Embassy Suites for $110 compared to...
It points to the desire that owners have to buy new products.
Right.
It points to the desire in the appeal of new extended stay products. And it also points to when a hotel transacts, when it needs a big PIP, okay, what the transaction has, which we're going to see a lot of these, okay, is it's got upside for the new buyer. Okay, so that $109,000 or $110,000 that he paid per room for that hotel, he's probably got to put $40,000 a room in renovation into that hotel, whereas the Home 2 needs no renovation. You're buying a new hotel.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're buying some of the stability of I don't have to do anything here for 5 or 6 years, versus the Embassy Suites, which needs to undergo a significant renovation. And the brands have the hand on that kind of stuff because if when you buy a brand like an Embassy Suites, there's not a lot of options to change it. I mean, there's not a lot of big full service brand suite products anymore. There might be one that could be carved out here or there. There are a few Marriott Suites left. There's a few Hilton Suites left. But the change in the floor plan to do that doesn't seem to make much sense. So if you're buying an Embassy Suites, you likely want to keep it an Embassy Suites. So the plan to do that and to gain the extension of the franchise agreement costs money.
Right.
And so therefore... Also in Texas, what we have noticed is there's been some properties affected by portfolio transactions in the state. And there's quite an active real estate transfer really kind of going on nationally in the first quarter. There's no question that we're going to see an uptick We couldn't go much lower. 2013 was really, and 14 were really pretty slow transactions years.
Yeah,
for the price of the debt. Last year went up a little bit more, but I think we're going to see a pretty big jump forward this year.
Yeah, I was speaking to a couple of brokers at some of the events that were being held last night, and they seem to be pretty bullish on how things are right now in terms of the buying and selling transactional market.
It's kind of like when you get an email from a car dealership that says President's Day weekend sale extended.
Right.
Okay. So they're trying to get you in, so they'll give you a little bit more opportunity. When you get a federal funds rate uptick, it typically leads the owner to believe, all right, that offer that I took that maybe I wasn't too satisfied with, that we kind of sat on, maybe we should be looking at that. You know, so if in terms of, a couple $100,000 seems to melt away pretty quick when you're talking about a 15, 18 to 20, $25 million hotel transaction.
Oof. That's depressing.
Yeah, it happens, man. I mean, you ever sell your house before, Glenn? Oh, yes, you did. But you took a hefty profit. But that profit wasn't offered to you right away, okay? It needed to be negotiated. You're just dealing with different amount of zeros, okay?
Yeah,
it's not really that intimidating at the end of the day.
To be fair, I really didn't have to negotiate too much. I was lucky enough to be in a cool up-and-coming neighborhood in Brooklyn, and I was able to just take the money and run. Just like Steve Miller said.
Take the money and run, right? So a couple of the other markets in Texas, we chatted a little bit about Dallas. Obviously, Houston has a significant pipeline. Houston's one of the markets in the U.S. that has a large negative RevPAR today.
Houston is one of the poster children for bad stuff right now.
It's oil and gas going down in terms of price points, and it's a change in the mix of the marketplace for travel. So as a result, a lot of new supply that they planned and built with the expectation that it would be serviced by that industry is going to be slowed for a little while.
Now, I was speaking to Andy Alexander, the president of Red Roof, yesterday here on the No Vacancy podcast. And for those of you listening, it will be coming. I just haven't posted it yet. We don't necessarily post all of these interviews in the order that we do them. He was saying that fracking seems to be coming back and things are looking good for the oil companies, at least where it's actually being taken out of the ground. Do you feel that there's going to be an improvement in the Houston marketplace as a result of that?
Well, we're looking at negative 12.5 RevPAR right now. I think it's the last one that I saw. So expectation is probably can't get a lot worse.
Right.
Okay. The question is, how much longer will it remain double-digit negative?
Yeah.
Okay, which is really when the tide will turn. Okay, and I, like Andy, if that is in fact the case and that's the news, I would hope that would churn this year. Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Houston. Nothing personal against Houston people. I'm talking about exclusively from going to an event type of perspective. I just feel like the downtown, like Dallas's downtown, there's not a lot of life and energy, where here in San Antonio it seems a lot more.
Well, one of the things
connected.
that they've had in Houston, they've had the Super Bowl there 2 of the last 10 years, and
I met a guy who went to both of them yesterday, and a little bit jealous.
And my Patriots won both of the times they were there, so that's why I remember it so fondly.
Yes.
Okay, but Houston with the 169 projects certainly. I say that when we talk about the category of start in the next 12 months, which is where a hotel that's an upscale or an upper mid-scale hotel typically gets announced, they're still only 75% likely to go forward, Glenn. So there is a cancellation rate involved in there that slows the development. So it may become more spread out. Okay, there may be some development properties and packages that may end up being for sale that might transfer to that second owner where entitlements are passed. Or some things may just slow. But if what Mr. Alexander had to say about fracking coming back, hopefully that will have a positive impact.
Yeah, and for those of you out there listening, go to Houston now if you want great rates on hotel rooms.
Good rates, great pools, lots of opportunity there. And I've, of course, as there's always 2 sides to every story, Glenn, I talked to guys who said, I want to buy in Houston because there's some people that will want to run for the hills, shall we say. Yeah, and so there may be good deals.
Right, yeah. It's like if you could get in on a fire sale price and wait it out a little bit. What we've learned, I think, over my entire career is the market always comes back and seems to be more robust than it ever was before.
Eventually it does come back, and eventually it goes through a metamorphosis of change. Oftentimes you have a hotel different kinds of mentalities within the hotel ownership. Some people want to run a very crisp, clean, well-renovated operation. Some people would prefer to let some of it go and spend en masse when they're forced to. So those are our preferences, okay? Those are owner styles. It also has something to do with, quote, how old your hotel is, how much it needs to be kept up, the type of branding that you're going for. But, with the new, I guess, soft brands, Glenn, there's always a new conversation. So we have now the Tapestry brand, okay, which
that
is
was
going to...
a former Starwood brand, now Marriott brand.
No, Tapestry is Hilton.
Yes. Sorry.
Alice.
Apologies.
Right. Tribute,
right.
Former
Sorry,
Starwood
they had
brand.
the same first letter. I got confused.
So who has Unbound, Glenn?
Hyatt?
Yeah, good score. Okay.
Woo,
so
thank
the Unbound
God.
collection
I'm
is
so
Hyatt.
glad I got that.
Yeah, I could see you sweating.
I was sweating.
The camera could see. Okay. So at the end of the day, Tapestry, okay, is probably going to be the first upper mid-scale soft brand.
Right.
Okay, we've never really had one of those. Now, they might argue
so Ascend
that it's
collection
kind
from
of,
choice would be more mid-scale?
Ascend is in there, okay, but the way I think we're going to see with Tapestry that's going to be a little bit different is that Hilton now has two soft brands with Curio and Tapestry. So how that all plays out, it's not quite certain whether Tapestry is really going to be upper mid-scale or upscale, but they're going to test the lower end of the market boundaries. And I said on stage yesterday, I said soft brands and boutique, does that word start to get merged more together, and do we end up with a tiering of soft brands?
Of course you will.
Will we see in a couple of years, we'll be talking about a soft brand chain scale, if you will.
Right.
So that we create a tier like we do in extended stay, where we have upper tier extended stay, mid-tier extended stay, lower tier extended stay. Will it be like that?
I would argue that it will be, because it's a natural expression of the maturation of any category. Once everybody gets into it, you need to break down into niches by just the function of trying to get a specific type of guest.
Sure.
The more competition there is, you want to try to focus on a specific personality type or psychographic or whatever it might be. And extended stay is really a great point. I see a lot of different things happening in that. And shameless plug time, if you want to learn more about the extended stay industry, be sure to check out, I'm now hosting Here to Stay TV. Of course, we've talked about that one, Bruce. You can check that out soon online at heretostay.tv. But for now, you can watch all the videos on YouTube at bridgestreet.com. So, Bruce, one more city that I want to talk about here. I think my favorite Texas city at all, home of the Bats, Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. So Austin is, again, not quite a top 25 city. It's riding, I think, 28 or
I would
9.
argue, to me, it's a top 25 city.
Sure.
I know what you mean, but
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, it appeals to you for the food. It
Yep.
appeals for you for the culture. It's
Yep.
very much aimed at guys our age, even a little younger than us.
Oh, definitely younger than us.
Yeah, sure. Well, the younger guys.
How about
maybe.
it's aimed at the at guys for the age that we'd like to be?
Okay, fair enough. Okay, if we could hit the time warp button and go backwards, that'd be fair. Austin riding with 87 projects in the new construction pipeline today. Probably a higher percentage of boutiques in Austin than you would find in other cities, okay? Part of that reason is that they want the smaller, unique city center platform hotels, whereas here in San Antonio, if you're going in on the Riverwalk, you're probably going in with a brand, okay, whether that be a full service or select service brand. Not as much in the urban center of Austin for those. Those are still kind of suburban. We have a few projects, but not dozens.
Okay, so would it be fair to characterize it as, because we're here in downtown San Antonio and it's such a focus on conventions, a branded hotel might make more sense. But in Austin, which is a city that's more culturally focused as opposed to convention focused, there's a lot more room for the boutiques?
Sure. There's no question that is part of the consideration when companies like Kimpton want to do new hotels there and companies like Two Roads want to do new hotels there. These kinds of companies are looking for that cultural alignment with their brand philosophy, if you will. Also, there have been some brands that have kind of started in Austin, where the first or second or third location has been there, and then therefore they build from there on the cultural attaché, if you will.
Any brands that you could think of that did start in Austin? That's curious to me.
Well, I know that I think the I'm going to draw a blank, Glenn.
That's too bad. It sounded like it would be fascinating.
1 for you, 0 for me. Okay, you got to let the host win sometimes.
I can't believe that. I think this is the first time in the hundreds of times we've appeared together.
Stump the Schwab.
Yeah,
darn it.
That this has ever seemed to have happened before. So.
But you do get a lot of unique independents in Austin being different because a lot of them are actually under 100 rooms, too. Mm-hmm. So you get these kind of graduated bed and breakfast hotels that turn into these more boutique assets, if you will.
Right.
And
I just want you to know I'm a little distracted by a major executive from a hotel company just walked by giving me the finger.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. Now, they weren't trying to put those finger ears on me, were they? I mean, come on.
No, I'm going to just assume it was directed right at you.
Okay.
And not at me. That was pretty funny. He did one of the old, scratching his face kind of routines and laughing about it.
What's going on in there?
Yeah.
Well, the last time we did a Facebook Live, Glenn, we did do it from a bathroom.
And I've got to tell you, I've heard a lot about that.
Yeah.
Just at this trip alone, people seem to have really responded to that video, which you could watch on the Glenn Hausman channel on YouTube. Bruce and Glenn destroy a bathroom.
It was a funny thing we just kind of happened into in Los Angeles, but, that was fun, and if that led us to today, then that was great.
Yeah.
Why not, right?
Anything else that you want to say today, Bruce Ford?
Well, we at Lodging Econometrics will be releasing our 1Q statistics here in the next 2 weeks. And I'm sure that there will be lots of eyes and ears in tune to development pipeline growth, which is likely to continue to increase. Sales transactions, as I talked about today, which are likely to see a spike. And the general market overview and conditioning, I'll be speaking at the event in Las Vegas coming up in early May, of course, and we'll see everybody at NYU in New York in June. And lots of points on the calendar, Glenn, so it's wonderful to see you. And thank God it's almost spring.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely spring. You can tell by the weather here in New York the other day. After I finished shooting videos in New York on Tuesday, 78 degrees. I had to get out of my suit and put on shorts and a T-shirt in order to get to the airport. It was so warm.
Yeah, but then it went back to 50 last night, didn't it? Right?
Well, I don't really care. I'm here in San Antonio.
Yeah. Well, we still have snow piles in New Hampshire, so, I mean, it's we're getting there. Though. Yeah. We're getting there. We did have a warm day this week where I think we got up to almost 85 degrees, so that was good.
That's pretty amazing. Well, stay tuned for some more exciting weather talk with Glenn and Bruce on the morning show. I want to thank you guys all for listening, for watching, for participating in the No Vacancy podcast, coming at you live from AAHOA 2017. Stick around for all of you. We're going to be doing more interviews throughout the day. And if you're listening to the show on the podcast feed, stick around because after the commercial break, we're going to have another great interview. Not sure it can match the Bruce Ford interviews. I don't think anything ever can, but we're going to give it a shot. Thanks for watching, and we'll be right back.
Have a question for your host, Glenn? Tweet him now at Traveling Glenn. No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for listening to the No Vacancy podcast with me, Glenn Hausman. You're listening to this right now. That's right, right now. You're listening. But you're not the only one. Many others are too. So my question is, do you want to get noticed? Guess what? I can help you with that. Every single month, my content delivers more than 100,000 impressions. I know. I thought the same thing too. Now it's your time to get you or your product, service, or brand known by leveraging my network. I'll work with you to find creative solutions that are going to get your message to the ears and eyes that you need to attract. Just send me a note at glenn@rouse.media or find me on Twitter at travelingglenn. That's glenn@rouse.media, ROUSE.MEDIA. And while we're at it, Glenn has got 2 N's. Thanks for listening, and now back to more great content.
Back to the show. It's No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the No Vacancy Podcast, broadcasting live-ish from the AAHOA conference here in San Antonio, Texas. It's been a great day so far, and by day I mean a couple hours this morning. We're having a great time. But fresh off the stage, we have with us Keith Cline. He's the president and CEO of La Quinta. And let me tell you, I'm excited that he took the time to come down and talk to us after being such a big shot on stage over there. Thanks for talking to the little guy, me. How are you, sir?
I appreciate it. You did a great job hosting the panel last year.
Thanks.
Right? You did a very nice job.
Well, I appreciate you plugging me in that sort of way. I had a lot of fun, and I only had to manage 5 of you guys at once on stage over a 2-day period. You just were up there with 11 people. That's an insane amount of folks to be having on stage at one particular time.
Yeah, it was. But Chip did a nice job.
Yep.
Right. They had a very focused kind of agenda of questions, really focused on owners, right, as you would expect, given the audience that we have today. And the thing that was extraordinarily refreshing for me was to see really how much we do think alike as CEOs in this business. Really, it's all about owning the guest experience. And a lot of our strategies are really pointed at the same target, so to speak.
That's interesting to me that you guys are all kind of focusing around the same thing. So it must be a little bit difficult for you if you're all homing in on the same type of topics to continue that sense of differentiation. One of the problems that I find is everybody wants to be different, but they seem to, in some ways, go different in the same kind of way, which complicates matters. So you've been in the job now for a little bit over a year?
Officially,
right?
Yes. Unofficially, about a year and a half.
Right.
Officially, a little more than a year.
And we first got to know each other as preparing for that last panel. So tell me a little bit about how you're trying to create that sense of differentiation now that you're all settled in and in the driver's seat for a year.
No, absolutely. A little more than a year ago, we communicated kind of our strategy as a business, which, for those that are around the hospitality industry, it's not earth-shattering, right? Drive consistency in your product, drive consistency in how you deliver an outstanding guest experience, and drive engagement by investing in the thing that you just mentioned, points of differentiation. Right? So as a part of this, we really unveiled a very robust real estate strategy. Right? We've taken a look at all of our owned assets and our franchise assets. An asset can either A, be properly positioned, B, it could have the opportunity to reposition upward, or C, it's just wrong street corner, right adjacencies, or wrong adjacencies, etc. And I got to tell you, that strategy is really moving the needle with our business.
So let's talk about that strategy a little bit, because that's something that has been kind of a public, but hasn't really been talked about all that much. So you're going to split the company into a real estate portion and a franchising side?
Sure. Yeah, so if you think about, so the first of the strategies we talked about was driving product consistency. Yeah. Driving guest experience and driving engagement kind of finishes out the trifecta, so to speak. But splitting the company is a real organic thing to think about. Think about all the lodging companies that are out there today. And La Quinta is a unique combination of really 3 different businesses. We're a very, very large real estate owner. But we're not a REIT. We're a C Corp.
And to give a little perspective for folks that don't understand the company as much, the company was really all owned. All the hotels were owned by the company for many, many years until about 12 years ago.
Well, if you think about it, about 15 years ago we started franchising. I mean, next year will be the 50th anniversary of our brand, which is amazing. And we're sitting, right now in San Antonio, across the street from the location of our very first hotel. Our 501 property.
I was going to say this for a little later, but I am staying at that hotel right across the street. But we'll talk more about the property in just a little bit. But right now I want to hear more about the strategy for the real estate play and the...
so if you think about, a REIT as opposed to a brand and management company, which is the other part of our businesses, those 2 types of organizations have opportunities within the hospitality space that flow very differently. Right? The job of a REIT is to invest in capital, recycle capital, diversify their footprint, etc. And many times you see people do that with multiple flags. Yet we own a lot of real estate in one single flag. Now, on the brand side of the business, their job is to make sure they've got very consistent product, consistent experience, right? Expanding their footprint in a very consistent way. And given some of the diversity between our own and franchised asset ownership, it's a very logical separation to take a portion of our owned assets, elevate them, which is a part of our strategy, to be upper mid-scale, right? At the same time, separate the real estate into 2 enterprises so that the real estate owning entity can, at some point, take advantage of potentially becoming a REIT and get a little more efficient tax structure. And then we've got this extraordinarily fast-growing asset-light franchising business that can continue to grow on the pace that it's on today.
Yeah, that's great, and I can tell you're a CEO because you just said that so beautifully and so organically. I think that's an interesting concept, and it makes me wonder why it wasn't done earlier but also makes me realize it's probably one of the reasons why you came aboard to begin with.
Well, if you think about it, right, so for a long time, owning real estate really was part of the success pattern of our franchising business. You can imagine with all the people at AAHOA, right, it's great for them to have a partner that's investing alongside them. So early on, when we owned 99% of our assets and 1% were franchised, they could look to us to say, you've proven the model, we want to invest in your platform.
Right.
So I think we've earned that credibility over the past 15 years. So now owning those assets doesn't necessarily have the same benefit and weight as it did before. So early on, not separating made a lot of sense because it actually accelerated the growth of the franchising business.
Yes, it did, because it created a level of confidence within the franchise community that said, we're here, if we're putting our money into stuff and doing stuff, then you should feel trust in us as well.
And then as a private company, right, we went public in 2014.
Right.
Before that, Blackstone owned 100% of the business, and we actually did enjoy the benefit of having a REIT down in our structure. So even though we were one company, we enjoyed the benefits of some of those protections that we just simply couldn't enjoy for a lot of reasons around the REIT rules as a public company.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you're going to really be leveraging this opportunity. So you split the company, you put one bunch into the REIT.
Yeah.
You split out the franchise side. Are you going to maintain those franchises, or are you going to try to allow others to take those over?
Well, so if you look at it right now, so our brand and management company will be in the operating portion of the business. Right now, our management company only manages the ones we own, our La Quintas. Now, there could be an opportunity in the future for that management company to actually manage properties on behalf of our franchise partners. Today, that doesn't exist.
Right.
But at the moment, if we actually get to a point where we do separate, at the moment that we separate, all the assets would be in the property owning company, and the brand and management company would be in the La Quinta structure that it is in today.
Right. All right. So that makes a whole lot of sense. So I wish you guys the best of luck on that particular topic, and man, I wish I'd gotten myself a little bit of that La Quinta stock when you guys went public, but I'm a man of foolish decisions constantly, which has brought me to this point of life, unfortunately. But we're not here to lament about my poor financial skills. We're here to talk about what a great CEO you are and been driving the company. So, guest engagement.
Yeah.
It's changing a whole lot over the last couple of years, and I find that everybody's saying those same words over and over again: experience, authenticity, blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, how are you coming to this approach, and how are you making sure that you remain that sense of differentiation that we talked about a little bit at the top of the chat?
Well, at the end of the day, it's really about relevancy. So before I joined the hospitality business, I spent a big chunk of my career in the fashion retail business, right? So and look at what's happening across the retail landscape today. You've got household names that are functionally disappearing because they become irrelevant. Why are they irrelevant? Well, we've got a good soundtrack behind us here. I think they're opening up the trade show. So we've got guitars and everything. I feel like our interview has a soundtrack. I love it. So they've lost their way, right? They've lost their relevancy. So they've stopped standing for something. So the perspective I'm bringing to our business is you need to stand for something in this industry. And a lot of it is a little bit of lip service because we talk about the same thing, but do you really stand for delivering an exceptional guest experience? Are you really making emotional connections?
That's the problem that I have with a lot of the brands, because I hear these buzzwords and everyone understands the buzzwords, but I don't necessarily see them being enacted in the way that I think fully satisfies what the customer is thinking.
So if you think about it, so at our conference this year, which we just finished, seems like a lifetime ago, but very recently, the theme was Elevate, right? So it's all about elevating your revenue, elevating your guest experience, elevating your employee experience, and we do that through kind of our branded guest and employee experience, which is called Here For You. The thing that you're talking about, giving this type of engagement teeth, that's what Here For You is all about. It's about creating emotional feelings and connections from the moment you enter the booking path, right? What do people want? We're a mobile-first society. We're tech-dependent, not necessarily savvy. So how can we make things easy for consumers and create an impression of the brand from the moment they enter the booking path? And then it's a series of gates that you go through. It's the parking lot, the entryway, the front desk, the hallway, the initial thought in room, what's your initial impression, and the employee interactions along the way. So really it's a holistic view on how you enable and really provide employees a vehicle to be authentic in whatever that is to them to create a great guest experience.
I like when you say whatever it is to them.
Yeah, one size doesn't fit all.
Right, and it's nice that I feel like the industry is moving away from that particular approach. for so long we got caught up with the idea of you must say these particular words for this particular scenario, and that removes all of the feeling from the situation.
It does, because if it's scripted, it's not authentic.
Right.
And the most important part of the connection is authenticity. It could be as simple as a hello with eye contact, if that's all you're comfortable with, or a wave. Whatever it is that you want to do to express some kind of a connection to a guest, whether you're, obviously if you're at the front desk, don't just, make eye contact. You have to actually engage with the guest. But if you're a housekeeper, you're a maintenance, find whatever you're comfortable with and you can do in an authentic way to make a guest feel welcome.
So how do you actually get the employees to understand this? And that's one of the things that you talked about with Evolve at the conference that just wrapped up a couple of weeks ago. Because I find that we're kind of, repeating the same kind of stuff over and over.
Sure.
So what's your thoughts on that?
So it's really about understanding what the clues are from a guest perspective to give you insight into what they're looking for. Right, so it's a function of making employees aware of this journey that a guest has. So every part of the journey is a clue. The clues start when they enter the booking path. So that guest experience focus and here for you starts online, on mobile, at the call center, when the property answers the phone. It's not rolling over the cost center. The first gate is the visual inspection of the hotel. What do they think when they pull in?
Curb appeal is so important.
Are they feeling it? Right. So if you think about our guests, and we survey them a lot to make sure that we're on point with what they want, they always tell us they want three things from their hotels. They want to feel assured. They want to know from the moment they pull in the parking lot they made the right decision. They want to feel settled in.
Right.
So getting from the front door to their guest and into the room, they want it to be their space, not ours. Is it a comfortable environment that allows them to feel settled and maybe enable the technology they brought with them to make them feel at home? But most importantly, our guests have told us over and over again that they're optimists. So everything we do around the humor in our commercials, around our marketing, like up on the bright side, is about evoking optimism. Even the use of a sunburst in our logo. Right. We're a brand that wants to own optimism because at its core, we're sitting across from where our brand was founded at the 1968 World's Fair, Hemisphere. And if you listen to the bar shops back in the day, Sam Barshop will tell you we're in this business to make people happy. So we're engaging our employees and charging them with finding what is that authentic way that you can make people smile and make them feel happy and create an emotional connection.
It must be more challenging than ever now because of that influx of technology. And we spend a lot of time, you mentioned eye contact. We spend a lot of time making eye contact with our smartphones and not with other people.
Yeah.
So that seems to me to be challenging from both sides of the equation. One, the guest doesn't necessarily appear as open to interaction. On the other hand is if you have a lot of younger employees that have come up in the smartphone era, notice there's more of a trend with younger folks to not necessarily be as comfortable with eye contact and direct connections with people.
Sure. Well, I think that person who's working at the front desk and is that first visual point and ambassador of the brand, you need to make sure that you're hiring right, training right, and have the right person at that front desk. Not everybody is cut out for that job. It's a hard job.
Right.
It's a hard job. Running a hotel is a hard job.
I know what a jerk I am as a guest. I can't imagine what they have to deal with.
So a big part of our leadership agenda as we roll out this branded guest experience and employee experience here for you is about what the role of the general manager is. The shadow of a leader is a powerful concept. And if we're trying to accomplish something across our brand, it matters what every single person in the organization does. And having the wrong GM running a hotel is the best way to fail.
Yeah.
So it all starts with setting expectations around the role of the general manager. It's to drive revenue and to drive the guest experience. And you're going to drive the guest experience by surrounding yourself with people that have these types of attributes and provide them tools and resources to hire correctly.
Tools and resources is great, but I always find that it's challenging to actually get some of these people to leverage those opportunities that you create for them.
Sure.
Is there a better way to connect with owners and general managers? I know you just came off the conference all, but there's always going to be that 20% that's not engaged at all.
There always is, right? And it's all about how people feel about the brand, right? I'm proud to say that our level of engagement within La Quinta, right, 85% of our employees, general managers would characterize their level of engagement as highly engaged or engaged, which is well above competitive norms in terms of measuring engagement. So we have a very passionate workforce. So we provide a lot of opportunities to connect. Communication's a big part of this. It starts with the annual conference. Ours just finished. It was called Elevate, right? Elevate your revenue, elevate your guest experience, elevate your employee experience. And off of that, the educational agenda would then unfold through regional meetings across the country twice a year, through advocacy on the brand council, right? As they hear information from their regions and their elected officials out there representing our franchise partners, as they hear feedback, we can then augment our communication to provide tools and resources. And then there's LQ University, right? Pointing people at resources to help them and help educate them along the way. You're not going to get everybody.
How savvy is the average hotel owners these days?
Well, I mean, you definitely see a very high level of sophistication around them being just great business owners, right? And we're at an interesting point, given that we're at AAHOA, with this kind of generational transfer of wealth, this generational transfer of knowledge.
I asked that question specifically because of that notion of that first generation came over here and they were just trying to survive.
And maybe even lived in the hotel. Right?
Most likely did. And the second generation, who was raised in those hotels, are now much, much more sophisticated because they can be 25 years old and have 20 years experience.
Right, and they're developers.
Yeah.
Right, it's a different perspective. You know, and it's interesting, we talk about that generation, and you can throw them all into one giant bucket and say, well, they're millennials. Yeah. But only millennials by age, but we spend a lot of time doing research. So at our conference, as a part of this educational process, we brought in an expert on generations and the expert on millennials, a gentleman named Jason Dorsey, who has wonderful insight and research. He is a millennial himself. And it's interesting when you look at that kind of cohort of people in the country that's really starting to split into two groups. They're both millennials,
right?
But there's a group of millennials that behaves like Gen Xers.
Right, okay.
Right? They're more mature. They got married earlier.
Right.
They got jobs earlier. And they actually have, aside from age, nothing in common with the millennials that are out there from a stereotype perspective. They mature a little later, get married a little later, have their first job a little bit later. So I think, catering to not just that generation, but all generations is a big part of it. And I think that the millennials, so to speak, that are growing up out of families in the hospitality business, many times are in that group that are a lot more like Gen Xers because they are more mature.
Yes.
They had their first job a long time ago. They're still getting married fairly young, right? They're business people. And they might actually resent the other millennials a little bit.
I think so. And one of the things that really frustrates me about them is I see how they have their act together at age 30, for example.
Right, they are ready to go.
And I think about where I was at age 30.
Right.
And it's pretty impressive to see how far they've come along. But I think you're absolutely right, Keith, in terms of the two sets of millennials, because you do have it's a 20-year period, and we're trying to shoehorn them all into one type of persona.
It's really two sets of 10, really. Yeah. But it's some that cross over quite a bit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because those older folks, as you said, they're married, they moved on to the next part of their lives, and then the younger folks are still trying to find themselves and how to express their identities in the universe, right? So one of the things that we all talk about, millennials this, millennials that, trying to be all things to them. So how are you going to not fall into that trap of trying to make everything about the millennials at the expense of older millennials, me, Gen X guys, and those baby boomers?
As well.
Yeah.
Well, it would be a huge mistake. So I'll use this analogy. So when you build a hotel, you don't build a hotel for one demand driver.
Right.
And you shouldn't build a hotel for one type of guest at the expense of all others. Now, millennials are important because that age cohort is larger than a lot of other generations that are out there. So it's about understanding where they are. Right? So if the millennial generation is the mobile-first generation, you better be sure that you're investing in that user experience platform from a mobile perspective, because their perspective or view on whether this is a relevant brand or not begins from the moment they enter the booking path. So make it easy, make it friendly, right? Play into what they know, which is mobile. In the hotel, let that influence your design a little bit. But you know what? Gen Xers like larger great rooms as well. Gen Xers like internet bars in the lobby as well. So I think there's things that cross over.
Agreed.
That won't make you skew a bit too far. I think if you lean in and say, I am just doing this for millennials, you may look in the rearview mirror and think that's a mistake.
I think that is a mistake. And one of the things that I see is if you put so much focus on this group and put all of your emphasis behind it, by the time you've built out your brand and made all the changes, they've moved on to a different way of behavior.
Right. I couldn't agree more. Right. The everything from the experience in the hotel to the design of the hotel, the room. how everything is structured needs to be able to transcend and work across generations.
Right.
Not one at the expense of the other. It's just good business.
Okay, so speaking about good business, I'm across the street over at La Quinta. I haven't had the opportunity to stay at too many of them before, not because I don't want to, but because I'm usually at these big conferences and
I'm not going to hold that
stay
against
at the big
you.
box hotel.
Okay.
But I'm having a great experience over there. I like it, and man, you've got a busy breakfast bar over there this morning.
It is.
Let me tell you,
it's a big hotel. It's a big hotel.
Yeah.
It recently went through a renovation.
I can tell.
And it's a great flagship for our brand, right? It's one great example of what we're doing across the fleet right now in key markets, which is finding hotels like the one we're looking at right now that has all the right adjacencies, the right competitive set to elevate itself.
Right.
And we're doing that at 50 hotels across the country right now, not just repositioning, but really elevating what that hotel stands for and generating enormous returns, not just for the company because we're the owner of the hotels, but the halo effect on the brand is even hard to measure. It's really going to come off wonderfully. Very optimistic.
I think you should be. It's a lot of great things happening for you. But before we wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about you and where you came from, because I've been kicking around this business now for a couple of decades, and you're a relatively recent entry into it.
Yes.
I can tell you're into fashion because you got a great tie and all of that. So I like that. But where were you in the fashion and retail kind of world?
Sure.
And how did you come to this universe?
Well, I've kind of, like you curate a retail collection, I've tried to do that with my career a little bit. I love consumer brands.
Right.
Early in my career, I spent a lot of time with Smuckers. Just a great, iconic consumer brand. Learned a lot about how to build culture and build loyalty among employees. Spent a lot of time at FedEx Corporation, another great brand, known for a lot of things. But years ago, I joined the fashion business because I love that connection with the guest or the consumer coming across your lease line. What makes them come in? How do you create that emotional connection? So I spent the better part of a decade in the fashion business, initially with L Brands, which is the parent company that owns Victoria's Secret and Bath & Body Works, and at one time Express and The Limited. They still own Henry Bendel, C.O. Bigelow, etc. And I honestly thought I would never leave that industry. Back in 2007, we took Express Fashion private, bought it from L Brands. I took that company public back in 2010 and was in Houston, Texas, working with an early-stage retailer called Charming Charlie, which is a fashion accessories boutique, growing that business amazingly. It's a great concept. And I had the good opportunity of meeting my predecessor at La Quinta, and meeting all the partners at Blackstone, John Gray, Bill Stein, all of these wonderful people that I had knew of but never had a chance to meet. And they had this interesting idea. How about you leave the fashion business and join the hospitality business? You bring a little different perspective to the industry because you've seen some other things. But the crossover from fashion to hospitality is seamless, right? They both have multi-unit. They both share the same ethos, which is best product, best service wins. I just don't have to worry about fashion risk and manufacturing anymore. Now it's just more about supply and competitive growth.
So what are we going to be wearing in fall of 2017?
I can't make that call. It may be what I have on today.
All right. Yeah. So where are we going to be staying in fall of 2017?
You should stay with La Quinta.
So how do you get to be a CEO of a company? What were some of the things that you did throughout your career that set you along this particular path?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I grew up in the financial ranks of the organization, right? So if I back up more than a decade, the reason that I went to L Brands or Limited Brands in Columbus, Ohio, is at that point in time, and today that company is known for educating and training financial executives like no other. There's few companies that are known for that. And that was really not just how to be a CFO, but how to be a merchant, a planner, a supply chain guy, a marketing professional, etc. So, for me, getting a rounded background was really important as a financial executive. But more important than that is really all the soft skills and the human side of the business. Early in my career, I spent a lot of time focusing on the things that are core to me around leadership and what my kind of leadership philosophy is. And everyone's a work in process, and I've been working hard on that for a long, long time. So I think, I feel fortunate to be given the opportunity to run this wonderful, iconic brand. But really, it's a combination of, I think, the training that I received historically by working with great companies, and then my passion around leadership and investing in myself all those years.
What is your leadership style?
So if you think about it, I had a fortunate opportunity to work for a leader at FedEx Corporation years ago, and I watched him lead. I thought, this guy's amazing. everyone follows him around like their children, so to speak, but he listens, right? He evokes power and influence, drives results in the organization. At the same time, I had an opportunity through him to work with some researchers, Daniel Goleman and Richard Boyakis, that wrote a book called Primal Leadership and coined a concept called emotional intelligence, which we now all talk about today.
Right.
But this was early in kind of those thinkings. This CEO that I worked for really exuded those qualities, the biggest of which is self-control, right? Being the calm within the storm.
Right.
Right. Understanding people's perspectives, lead them the way they want to be led, not the way you lead. Right? So my leadership philosophy is grounded in self-awareness, collaboration, being a real active listener.
Right.
Right. I don't have all the answers, so establish an environment based on trust with your employees, so all the best ideas will get shared. You can rally around it, pick the right idea, create alignment, and drive results in an organization. But it all comes with having a leader in place that allows employees to be comfortable, right, and be trusted to do the jobs.
That's tricky, because sometimes we get all caught up in our own head, and we kind of lose the perspective of what the others are thinking. How do you avoid that trap?
Well, self-speak is dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. So I am humble all the time. I don't ever pretend that I have all the answers, and I want to hear from everybody around my leadership team and around the company, because the best ideas are typically coming from those people that have the most interaction with our guests.
Right.
So I think leaders today have to be humble, or they'll go astray.
Right. Anything else that you want to share with us today?
No, I got to tell you, I'm having a great time with the company. The kind of transformation that we're going through is very intentional.
Yeah.
We are changing this business, and we're extraordinarily encouraged by the early results that we're seeing. The strategy's coming together, so for me it's extraordinarily rewarding to see something you put on paper a year ago really start to move the needle with the business.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually have one piece of paper in front of me for this notes with a press release, and I didn't even bring it up in this whole time we've been talking. In March, you announced the return, the enhanced benefits, the loyalty program with industry-first benefits, innovations, and rewards.
Yeah.
We should probably use this as part of the shameless plug section. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about a part of that release called Redeem Away. Right, Redeem Away is a brand new element to our loyalty program, which we relaunched at the beginning of this year, that gives La Quinta Return members, and this is an industry first, the ability to link their Visa account to their La Quinta Returns account, and then use points, something millennials want, right? They want something right away, right? Use their points from their first stay to redeem for cups of coffee, books, food, right? It's all geolocated. You walk into a Starbucks, boom, you get a text from your Redeem Away account. You want to use your loyalty points for a cup of coffee today. Yes. Free cup of coffee on La Quinta.
Nice.
And thank you for your loyalty. I can announce this now because last night Hospitality Technology Magazine named La Quinta the Visionary of the Year for this specific product.
Awesome.
As the most visionary customer-facing application in the hospitality industry.
That's fabulous. Congratulations on that.
We're very excited.
That's pretty exciting stuff. So, a lot of stuff that you can do. You have, I got a nice little list here that I'm going to look at right now. Upgrade bonuses for tiers in the hotel. You get every stay counts, every night counts. That mobile checkout. Yep. That I like because I might actually use it instead of just ghosting from every single hotel stay that I do.
No, exactly. We listen to our guests, and today's loyalty member not only wants to have value in a loyalty program, but they want it to be accessible and usable and have value in the amenities and features and benefits.
Right.
And we've focused very hard on putting together a list of a dozen plus benefits that we believe really satisfies what guests want today.
And here's one other thing that you guys are doing that I find fascinating is social connections. Earn extra points for sharing, and members can link their social media accounts to La Quinta Returns.
Absolutely, right? There's no... In today's sharing economy, right, guests have perfect price information and perfect experience information. There's no better way to connect with another guest than hearing the perspective of an existing guest.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm all about creating those social media moments within hotels to help promote the property. Because that's really the best way to connect, I think, with the travelers that are not in that hotel.
I agree.
Anything else that we need to know?
No, I think we've covered a lot of the broad strokes today.
Whew, that was great. I had a lot of fun talking to you, Mr. Keith Cline, President and CEO of La Quinta. I'll be thinking about you tonight when I'm all cozied up in my bed over there across the street.
Enjoy.
All right. Thanks a lot for being here, and thanks for you guys for watching, for listening, and all that great stuff. And we'll be back with another interview real soon. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman, online at rouse.media, on Twitter at Traveling Glenn, and on Facebook.com/Glenn.Hausman. We'll catch you next time.